Why are you shorting Netflix?
Well, I mean, you look at over the next year and what's happening, there's going to be 4 different companies, all with very strong cash flows, that are going to be coming out with their own services. Disney and Apple later this year in November, and then you've got AT&T through HBO Max and Comcast through their Peacock service that are launching their own streaming services as you look into early next year. And if you look at Netflix, the biggest, well, there's several issues, but they missed their subscriber numbers both in the June quarter that they reported. They missed them again in the September quarter they reported. And you haven't even had the competition come out yet with their products. And I think we can all agree that the 4 that are coming, they all have not only big cash flow streams, but they've all got, in different ways, very good brand recognition for their products. So Netflix is going to have a lot of competition for subscribers, and I think that's going to be a real problem going forward. And costs are also going up underneath all of this, where because these guys are all launching their own programming, the costs are continuing to go up. At the same time, there's a lot of price pressure where, if you look at Apple, for example, you get the Apple TV service free when you buy a qualifying device. So you've got pricing pressure down, you've got costs going up. I don't think it's a great situation for Netflix. It's burning $3.5 billion in cash flow this year, and it's going to have a tough time next year, I think, as well.
Yeah, Henry, I mean, I think with all this competition coming online, especially here in the U.S., it does kind of beg the question whether the U.S. market has topped out, especially when you do see some of these changes that are coming to how the company is going to report those U.S. subs and fold them in with Canada, right?
The U.S. market certainly seems to be maturing, no question there. But one thing that Netflix did that surprised a lot of people was be very successful internationally. And one of the questions that I'd have for Dan is whether this short call is just a short-term, 6-month, let everybody pile into the market, scare out everybody in the stock bottoms, or do you think the stock is done? I mean, are we over? Have we peaked forever?
Yeah, I mean,
Dan,
I think.
your thoughts?
Yeah, I think when you look at this, I mean, this is obviously an evolving story, but I mean, the way I look at it is the following: you've got 4 very big, very strong cash flow generating companies that are coming into this space, and I think we're not going to know how this environment looks until the last guy, which is probably Comcast, launches their streaming service sometime in the second quarter of next year. As you know, Henry, it's not necessarily the numbers, it's the multiple you're willing to put on those numbers that changes valuation. So, I mean, Netflix, for me, it's my guilty pleasure. I love Netflix. Whenever I'm having a bad day, I love to binge watch. Having said that, a great product doesn't necessarily mean it's a great stock, especially when you're in this situation where there's pricing that's going to be continued to push down. I mean, Apple's saying, hey, you get a free TV service if you buy an iPhone. That's not great because you're competing against zero at one end, and Apple generates a ton of free cash flow. And by the way, remember, we run a hedge fund. So for us, we own Apple, we own Google, we own Facebook. We bought Roku in late September, early October, which I think they're going to really benefit because Apple's TV service is going to come out on the Roku devices as well as Disney services. And so for us, this is, a nice way to pair things up. Netflix has been a great short for us last year, actually. It's a great short for us this year already. And so for us, it's a portfolio, and I think it's definitely going to underperform, and we think it's going to go down. So it's not necessarily a forever call because the service is not going to go to zero, right? People are going to continue to watch it. I think the ability to add subs, and you brought up a great point, Henry. Internationally, there's a lot more room to add subs. But, all these companies at some point, they're going to be, competing aggressively internationally as well.
I wonder what you think, Henry, about the international playground, because they had domestic mostly to themselves for a while. They've had international to themselves, in a sense, for a while. Now the discussion is all of a sudden about sub-quality internationally.
I think there's a lot of room. A lot of people in the world. They're at 160 million now, which, by the way, 4 or 5 years ago would have been people would have thought that was ludicrous to say they could ever get here. There have been many of these scares since they launched the streaming service, and even when they went from the DVDs to streaming, stock gets creamed, everyone decides it's over, and then they come through it. And so that's why I asked Dan that question. And I do think, and another question for Dan is, how big ultimately is the global market opportunity for Netflix? Can this company have 1 billion subscribers at some point? If they can, okay, then there probably is a lot of room to run after this. If we cap her out around 200, 250 million, then you can say, okay, we're probably done.